Hello, Martin Bennedik here for chesspuzzle.net. Today I'm going to show you another content update for Puzzle Academy, which includes 20 new levels and 2 new endgames, Rook versus Knight and Rook versus Bishop. Now let's have a look at the new endgames. The first endgame is Rook versus Knight. This is usually a draw, but there are some cases where the side with the rook can win. For example, if the king and knight are in the corner of the board, or if the knight is separated from the king. Here is an example where the knight got separated. From the game Gustav Neumann versus Wilhelm Steinitz, Baden-Baden 1870. That was one of the first super tournaments. It invited many of the best chess players of the time. Wilhelm Steinitz was already a very good player, and he would become later the first official world champion of chess. Okay, let's try to solve this endgame. This isn't easy at all. Trapping this knight can be quite difficult. You always have to be careful that the knight doesn't have any squares to escape to. And there's actually several levels, and this is from level 3, so it's not easy. Let's see if I get this right. So first we can attack the knight and drive it back a bit further down the board. And from here the knight has 3 squares where it can go to. But we can give an intermediate check here and then go to f3. And from here we cover already 3 of the squares where the knight can go to. So there's only this one square on b2, which the knight still has to escape to. And now we can approach with our king. And the knight goes to b2. And from here it can also go to a4 and to c4. So now let's approach with our king to take away the c4 square. We go here. And now there's only 2 squares where the knight can go to. So let's take away one of the squares with our rook now. So then there will be only 1 square left. Now the knight went there. And from here the knight has only 2 squares on the b file. So let's go with the rook to the b file. And now we can just win the knight like this. Let's have a look at the other new endgame, which is rook versus bishop. In this endgame there's a good corner and a bad corner. So this h8 square is the bad corner, and the good corner would be here on h1. So if the king managed to get to h1, then the bishop will always be able to defend the king against any checkmates from these 2 squares. So in this case, we can now give a check on g6. And then the king has to decide, does it go to the bad corner? Or if the king would have gone here to h5, then we would have been able to play a double attack with rook g1, threatening checkmate and attacking the bishop. So now the king actually had to go to the bad corner, and we can follow with our king. Go here and go here. And now the king is in the bad corner and we have opposition, and there will be checkmate threats. So for example, if we attack the bishop here, we are also threatening checkmate. Now black took away this square, but we can attack the bishop again from here. And now there was no way to cover the h1 square with the bishop because it's a white square and the bishop is a black squared bishop. So now we can give check. Black can still interpose, but if we just make a waiting move, it's rook swung and it will be checkmate. Then we have some additional new levels and skills. So first of all, we have this checkmate patterns fools mate in 2 level. So this is a typical example. Black just made a bad mistake playing f6, and this weakened the diagonal to the king, and we can just sacrifice our bishop here and achieve fool's mate. Then in the attacking course, we have the new skill attacking the uncastled king. So this can be a checkmate, or it can be a double attack, or it can be another way where we threaten checkmate, and checkmate can only be prevented with material losses. So at first I wanted to start this skill with 2 move puzzles. However, when I tried the 1 move puzzles, which are always checkmate in 1, this was so much fun, so I included the first level into the skill. Okay, let's try this. Okay, this is just crazy. Now let's have a look at a bit more difficult example from level 2. So this is the famous legal mate, named after this player here, Legal de Cameur, and this game was played in Paris 1787. And here white can checkmate after having sacrificed the queen with these 2 knights in the middle of the board. Yeah, if you look at the game on the solution page, you can actually see that in this game, this was actually a bit ridiculous. Here, white played knight takes e5 and sacrificed the queen, but this was just a trap. So if black would have recaptured with the knight, they would have protected the bishop, and white would have just lost the piece. So yeah. So anyway, let's have a look at the next new level. So there's a new level in the tactics course, intermediate check to avoid checkmate. So there was already 2 skills with intermediate moves and intermediate checks with 5 levels each. And these higher levels can actually be super tricky. I'm still struggling myself with levels 4 and 5 with these intermediate moves and checks. But there you would always do these intermediate moves and checks to get one of your pieces out of another counterattack. So then you would win the piece at the end. And here in this new level, we do this to avoid checkmate. So let's have a look at an example. So in this case, we could capture the queen on a7, which is unprotected, but then the rook on c8 would be able to give checkmate on c1. So what can white do? This is also like a skewer. We can't move the queen away somewhere to protect this rook. So we could give up here our queen for the rook, but that wouldn't be good either. It wouldn't be checkmate because black still has knight f8 to protect against that. So the solution is to give this intermediate check with rook d8. And now if black captures, the rook can no longer give checkmate here. So now we can capture the queen. And the other move here is to play knight f8, but then we can just capture the rook and we will also have one material and won the game. So another new level is defending piece and avoid capture defender. Let's have a look at an example. So here the rook attacks our queen, and the queen also has to protect the bishop, which is attacked by this knight here. And the queen has two squares where it can go to and still protect the bishop. So it's f4 and f3. So, but if we go to f4, then the black queen can exchange itself, and then after we recapture the bishop on g4 will be unprotected. So that's actually a capture defender for the opponent. So the only correct move is to go to f3. And if you look on the solution page, all of these solutions will also explain the thread. So this is the thread and shows the correct move. And also it will show why we can't play queen f4 because of this line where you capture the defender. Okay, nice. And then in combinations, we have a new level for the decoy into skewer skill. And this combination, you sacrifice a piece, and if the piece is captured, you've lured the capturing piece into a skewer. Let's have a look at this example here. So this is actually quite tricky. So this level 3, it has 5 moves. And this is actually a nice puzzle. Here you have to play rook b8 check. And now the queen has to capture. If the queen doesn't capture, there was a checkmate with queen a7. You can replay this on the solution page. And now there's actually a skewer, but it takes a few moves, so that's why it's not easy to see. So you can now give a check here on the g file, and then you give a check on g7, and now you have the skewer. So this is a very nice puzzle, not easy, but yeah, this combination also occurs frequently in practice, and it's nice that you can now learn and practice this in Puzzle Academy. Okay, these are all the new levels. I wanted to say one more thing about these endgame levels where you have to achieve a draw, or like checkmating with bishop and knight. This can take a lot of moves. So I think 35 moves easily with checkmating with bishop and knight, and some of these draw levels also from the new ones that are introduced now with bishop against rook. It can take up to 50 moves until you achieve the draw. Then you can claim a draw with the 50 move rule. Yeah, and when you have to unlock such a new level, actually you have to play 10 puzzles. So if you have to play 10 puzzles with 50 moves each, okay, that's 500 moves. So that takes forever. So you probably don't want to unlock such a level in one go. So maybe you solve 1 or 2 puzzles and then you stop and you continue on the next day. So that was already possible before, but it wasn't clear in the user interface. So you had to know that your progress was saved, but this wasn't clear. So yeah, sorry if you got confused about this, but now I've made this clear in the user interface. So let's have a look at this, how it works. So let's go to the endgame curriculum, and let's say we want to practice this endgame rook versus bishop, where we can draw in the right corner. And okay, let's say we want to unlock this. Okay, and now let's say we already played a couple puzzles and took forever, and now we want to pause. And now we can at any time just click this pause unlock button. It will show our current score, and it will say you can resume anytime later. As always, I'm looking forward to your feedback, and see you soon with the next content update.